Good afternoon to all the delegates. Welcome to the Merago webinar program. I am Dr. Uday Kumar Maya. I'm an oncologist and I'm the medical director of Merago Healthcare Technologies. As part of our ongoing education medical promotional program, we present this webinar today on a very important topic on student mental health. We call it Mental Health Matters. This program is intended to familiarize all of you who are thought leaders and school principals and administrators and educators. We want to familiarize you with the concept of student mental health and also the resources which are available to support this concept of student mental health. As you are very well aware, mental health is as important as physical health. You cannot have one with the exclusion of the other. As the adage goes, a healthy mind and a healthy body. Let me talk something about Merago, the organization where I'm associated with. Merago is a healthcare service company. We deliver patient-centric, affordable, and convenient healthcare access using a combination of expertise, newer care methods, and intelligent technologies. Today's topic, Mental Health Matters, will be delivered by Mrs. Vasudha Raghunandan. She is a colleague of ours and she will be speaking on this program for about 30 minutes. She is a senior mental health counselor at Merago Healthcare and has a vast experience in managing student mental health issues. Now, before she commences her lecture, I would like to bring a few points to your notice. The duration is about 30 minutes. The webinar lecture is about 30 minutes. There will be a question and answer session after the webinar. For the sake of the smooth flow of the program, we encourage you to ask your questions after the completion of the webinar. If in case you need to ask an immediate question, you may post the same on the chat option on the webinar. You can see a small dialog box there. You can pop in your question and I'll be moderating the session and I will pop it to Mrs. Vasudha as and when it is relevant. Okay, with this brief introduction, it's my pleasure to welcome Mrs. Vasudha Raghunandan to give her exposition. Vasudha, it's all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Uday. Hello all. I welcome you all to this webinar by Merago. Really appreciate you all taking time during your working hours and joining us. Thanks a lot. I'm Vasudha, as I told you. I used to work as a counselor. I love stories right from my childhood. I think that's why I chose to become a psychologist. I have listened to a lot of stories, some very inspirational, some very painful, but I listened to them all. Today, I'm going to narrate two stories for you. Ajay was a very bright kid, exceptionally gifted. He loved music, but he did not like studies. He somehow managed to clear his 12th board exams and wanted to join Fine Arts College. But his parents wanted him to become a doctor because both of them were doctors. After all, it's in his genes, you see. Ajay got a payment seat. And when he was in his medical school, he did not attend classes. He stayed in the hostel room, spending most of the time playing video games. He took to alcohol and drugs. And when he had to face the pressure of the first year exams, he tried to kill himself. Ayesha was a happy child, loved going to school. When she hit her teens, her friends started making fun of her. They body shamed her. They called her fat, dark, ugly. Ayesha suddenly got very anxious. She did not want to go to school and she wouldn't sleep well. She used to feel very anxious throughout the night and would wake up with knots in her stomach. And when she mentioned this to her parents, they thought she was being extra dramatic. Unable to bear the pain, Ayesha started cutting herself in the school washroom. When the school found out, she was rusticated. I'm sure these kind of stories sound very familiar to you all, and we are all aware that there is a problem. It is said that a problem well understood is a problem half solved. So let's step back and understand the problem of mental health in some detail. In a classroom of 50, about 10 may have mental health issues. 50% of the mental health problems start before the age of 14, and 75% of the mental health problems start before the age of 20. The students with mental health problems are not just problem for themselves, but they can have ripple effect on the classroom, teachers, and the mental health of others. Severe mental health conditions render them completely dysfunctional and adversely affect relationships, personal and professional growth, and the community they live in. So, how do we define mental health? How do we know when a child has a disorder? The World Health Organization defines mental health as a status of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stressors of life, work productively, and able to contribute to the society she is living in. Mental health encompasses social, emotional, and behavioral well-being. So when does it become a mental health concern? When there is a disturbance in functioning in relationships, mood, behavior, or development, or when a problem is severe or persistent over time, or when these impact the child's professional, social, and academic functioning, a child is said to have a mental health disorder. As we see here, mental health is a spectrum, it is not a binary. Ideally, we want the child to be in the green zone, thriving, excelling, but the child, for various reasons, he may be in the orange zone, he may be in the yellow zone. That is where those are the warning signs. And when the child is in the red zone, that's when he clearly needs intervention. Some of the childhood disorders, mental health disorders, as we all know, could be attention deficit hyperactive disorder, intellectual disabilities, attachment problems, separation anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorders, depression, specific learning disabilities like dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and adolescents. They have another set of problems like depression, anxiety, stress, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, OCD, stress, personality disorders. So what are the probable causes? So mental health is not a linear thing. Mental health issues are caused due to a multitude of factors. It could be biological, genetic exposure to hazardous material, birth complications, changes in the brain chemistry. All these can cause mental health issues. Psychological and social disturbances like, troubles during childhood, upbringing, childhood experiences, poverty, child abuse, life stressors, loss of a job, breakups, and the list goes on. So having understood the term mental health, let us see what is the magnitude of the problem. Our Honorable ex-President Ramnath Kovind in 2017 asserted that India is facing a mental health epidemic. This was in 2017, and post-COVID, the mental health conditions of children and adolescents have drastically worsened. 50% of the mental health problems start before the age of 14 and 75% before the age of 20. Significant number of children in the age group of 13 to 15 are depressed, anxious, feeling lonely, without friends, and many children reported that they're distracted in the school all the time, they're unable to concentrate. A report by NIMHANS stated that about 23.3% of adolescents and children have psychiatric disorders. 81% of the school students in India experience anxiety and depression due to academic pressure. This was a survey done by NCERT. About 9.8 million of Indians aged 13 to 17 suffered from serious mental health illnesses. India is the suicide capital of the world, and suicide is the leading cause of death among the youth. Common mental health disorders like anxiety, depression have a treatment gap of 95%, meaning to say only 5% of the people affected seek help. The rest of the 95% struggle with the mental health condition. Added to all these problems, India has very less mental health professionals. We just have about 0.75 psychiatrists for 100,000 population, whereas ideally it should be 3 per 100,000 population. So let's understand what are the factors that are influencing the student mental health today. What we see at the surface is just the tip of the iceberg. A child may look angry, bored, stressed, worried. Beneath this, there are a multitude of factors. A child cannot express his emotions very well. He cannot come and tell that I'm anxious, I'm depressed. So a child may internalize the struggles, in which case he becomes depressed, anxious, and when he externalizes, it is seen as aggression, bullying, rage. Few years ago, a lot of concerns were raised about the size and the weight of the school bag the child is carrying to school. But today, I am worried about the baggage that the students are carrying. Things like parental conflicts, divorce, untreated mental health issues of the parents, financial difficulties, mom getting beaten up by an alcoholic dad, stress of academics, not having friends, feeling lonely, body image issues, breakups, and the list goes on. Academic pressures, expectations, as we saw in the case of Ajay, peer interactions, and bullying, as we've seen in the case of Ayesha, we know how they contribute to the mental health decline of the students. Excessive use of social media, internet addiction, cyberbullying are also contributing factors. Children failing to have meaningful relationship, face-to-face conversation with peers. They have a lot of friends on the social media, but it is very difficult for them to form meaningful relationships. They look for constant validation from social media. They're they are into Instagrams, scrolling continuously. These things keep them unhappy and can be a leading cause for mental health issues. Having understood the mental health issues, let me talk about how we can offer some kind of a help. Let me narrate a story to drive this hope. There is this village by the riverside. One day, a villager is standing by the river and he sees a child floating down the stream. Obviously, he's shocked and he says, "Hey, what's going on there?" Obviously, he dives in, swims, and saves the child, rescues the child. Next day, he is out there doing his morning chores. And today he sees 3 children. Now he calls other villagers for help. Come, come, we have to save the children. They are drowning. So the villagers dive in and they rescue the children. And shockingly, next day also something similar happens. After rescuing the child, this villager is really worried now. We have to have some plan, this cannot go on, and we have to form some rescue team that stays there and watches, make sure that no child is drowned. So he goes to a wise teacher in the village, and the teacher says, yes, we should have the best team out there, but also let us walk up the river and find out what is happening there. Why are these children floating down the river? So when they walk up, they see a bridge, a broken bridge. Some of the planks are broken. And while some of the students could carefully step on the unbroken planks and cross the bridge, Many are falling through the gaps. Isn't it what we are doing today? When there is a problem, we jump in. When there is a trouble, we dive in to rescue the child. We form teams to save the children, to help the children. Instead, let's take a walk back up the river today. Maybe we will find some planks missing. Maybe we will find some ways to prevent these children falling through the gaps. So far, we have understood, we discussed that there is a problem. We understood the magnitude of the problem. And we also, from the story, we realized that some steps have to, the problem can be averted, reduced, mitigated. So why is it necessary at school level? We saw that 50% of the mental health problems are start before the age of 14 and 75% before the age of 20. This is the time the child is spending most of the time with you, right under your care. So it's a good idea to catch them early. Walking up the river and identifying the missing planks as the wise teacher did. Identified early, 75% of the mental health disorders can be treated. We know that mental health constitutes emotional and social components. A study was done to determine the impact of 20 odd factors on the academic performance. The study found that emotional and social skills exerted the most powerful impact on the academic performance of a child. A longitudinal study was done over 15 years, shows that when the schools acted on improving the the social and emotional quotient of the student, there were significant positive results like increased positive attitude, improved classroom behavior, improved academic performance, and better learning abilities. It also improved the teacher-student bonding, and it also decreased the behavioral problems that the teacher normally faces in a classroom setting. So we understood why schools should act. Let's also discuss what happens if we do not act. Mental health conditions affect attention span, concentration, and memory. And mental health issues like depression and anxiety have become extremely common, but the treatment gap is 95%. Depression can lead to loss of interest in day-to-day activities, fatigue, low mood, and making the child missing the classes frequently, not catching up with the course, and this results in poor learning outcome. Untreated, many mental health disorders manifest as behavioral issues such as aggression, disruptive behavior, causing tremendous stress to the teachers, impairing their mental health also. It may persist into adulthood, affecting a person's education, employment opportunities, his social life, his family life, and it affects the overall quality of life. Children with undiagnosed and untreated mental illness are much more likely to discontinue education and end up using drugs. Close to 50% of all the youths in jail have some kind of undiagnosed mental illness. So yeah, let's pause here. We understood there is a problem, and the problem is that the students and the adolescents and the children are getting affected by the age of 14 or by the age of 20 when they're right under your care. And schools doing something is definitely improving the outcome in all areas of life. It is better for the school, better for the teachers, and better for the children also. So what should schools do? How should this mental health program look like? WHO proposes school mental health program to have promotional of mental health being prevention, early detection, and referral provisions. So we should have a 3-tier approach in schools. one at the school-wide program at the school level, one at the classroom level, and one at the individual level. So across the school, a few steps can be taken to improve the mental health condition of the entire ecosystem. It is not just for the students, it's the entire ecosystem. So school should have a system to conduct periodic surveys to identify the mental health status of the children. They should have mental health professional visiting your schools periodically to conduct screening, train teachers to identify the signs of distress and refer students to appropriate services, to have referral services to refer students diagnosed with mental health disorders to psychiatrist, child psychologist, and to support groups. Collaborating with mental health professions to have such programs all through the year is important to have a early detection and intervention program. Implementing the mental health education. Mental health education should be incorporated at the core curriculum level, incorporating techniques like mindful-based meditation, progressive muscle relaxation, yoga, music, and other expressive art forms also include physical activities for the children. Provide mental health literacy and awareness to the staff, what signs to look for, what they can do in the initial stages to support the child, when is it required to seek help. These things the staff should be aware of. Providing awareness sessions to the parents, organize workshops and seminars for parents on mental health topics like early detecting early warning signs, what kind of interventions are required like therapy and medication. There is a lot of fear about psychiatric medication. Educating teachers and parents will help them understand the importance of medication. Education about child sex abuse, how to report when a child comes and tells, believe when the child says he is getting abused. Educate them about drug abuse, peer pressure, how to say no. These are very important things a child should know. Also, promote the mental health of the teachers and staff, because your mental health is equally important. It is not easy for a teacher to handle a class of 50 plus students when a parent is getting tired at the end of the day handling one or two children. So taking care of your mental health is equally important. First, you have to take care of yourselves. As the airline announcement goes, you wear your oxygen mask first. Practice mindfulness-based meditations. Take good care of your health and physical exercise. Also set boundaries between your professional and personal spaces. Exercise, diet, and seek help when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel stressed, to avoid burnout. Address the stigma of mental health. Encourage open conversations and remove the taboos around mental health. Just as you talk about physical illness, talk about mental health issues also. Promoting a positive school environment. This also should be done across the school level. A child must feel safe, respected, and loved. Create an environment where his psychological, social, and emotional needs are met. Have zero tolerance policy for ragging, bullying, discrimination, body shaming, or any form of abuse. Recognize students who are shy, anxious, withdrawn, and pair them with buddies who are extrovert and who are supportive. Establish a peer mentoring system where students are trained to identify at-risk students and help them to seek the necessary support. Providing access to mental health support services is very much required. Um, School should provide access to mental health counselors and mental health professionals, offer individual and group counseling, establish a confidential space for the students to seek support, Many telemedical platforms offer counseling, um, therapy services, both online and in person. Psychiatrists are also available on such platforms. Schools can engage with such platforms also. This is at a classroom level. So in the classroom, how we can build how we can better the mental health of a child. So how we engage the child, how we engage the students and create strong relationships, activities and opportunities for students to work outside their comfort zone, create projects or work groups where they have to work beyond their peers. And after they're done with the project, brainstorm, and after the group work, ask them to identify the difficulties in working with people who are not their friends, and ask them what worked, what did not work, and also set ground rules saying that, you know, they can state, I agree because, I do not agree because, and make them understand that they can comment on the action, not on the person. Help them understand the group dynamics. Enable them to take care of their emotions. Teach them skills to regulate their emotions, identifying the triggers, coping mechanisms, alternate ways of thinking and addressing the situation, stress management, anger management. Tell them why stress is required. You know, when a child comes and says, I'm very stressed for my exam, you have to tell them that stress is required. And you can explain with the X Dodson law, where an optimal level of stress brings out the best performance in the child. Empower them by teaching resilience. As adults, we know that life is not going to be smooth. Life will have challenges and adversities. How do we bounce back after we are hit with the adversity? Teach them it's okay not to get everything right at the first attempt. Tell them it's okay to fail. FAIL, fail expands to first attempt in learning. Encourage their attempts, even if they have failed. Empower them by helping them understand the importance of empathy, emotional quotient, and social quotient. Good IQ will, get them good marks, a good job, but good EQ and good SQ will help them to become better employers, better employees, team players, and to have better relationships. How we model our behavior, how we remain non-judgmental, how we handle our mistakes, how we deal with our frustrations, how we solve our problems, how we care, how we ask for help, how we talk about others and how we talk for others, and how we acknowledge our vulnerabilities. Children are mimicking our behaviors. How we give praises to the children and how we give feedback. Be generous with the praises. Children need validation. These skills that you impart goes a long way, making them better at handling relationship, be a better employee, employer, a team player, and a content individual. Have discussions about mental health. Normalize it's like getting cold cough fever, how you helped a struggling child. Share stories, struggles of people you know. Remove the stigma. And at a individual level, create targeted programs for the mentally ill and the at-risk students, acknowledge their struggles, be understanding of the struggles of the child. What is seen as laziness may be depression, and what we call aggression may be a cry for help. Behind every behavior, there is an unmet need. Understand the need. Be flexible with a child who is diagnosed with a mental health condition. Give him extra time to complete his work. Have flexible deadlines. And also you can pair them with students who are academically well so that they can catch up with the academic work. Cognitive behavior techniques to change thinking patterns and address cognitive distortions can be taught to slightly older children also. Follow up with their progress, be it therapy or be it medication, follow up with their progress. Also have protocols for addressing crisis, educate the staff, train the staff on crisis intervention and suicide prevention. You can have suicide gatekeepers in your college, in your school. Like we saw in the case of Aisha, who was cutting herself in the washroom. That's a crisis, and a psychological first aid has to be given to the child uh, before further interventions are taken. Collaborate with the local emergency service for immediate support in case of such incidences, and be patient with the mental health struggles of the students. It's maintenance, it's waxing and waning. Uh, when such a holistic system is in place, educational institution will not only be spaces of seeking knowledge, but also places of seeking hope and healing. So these are the takeaways from today's session. Also, I wanted to mention that Government of India, though they are actively looking at the problem, there is no comprehensive child and adolescent mental health policy for the huge population of over 500 million children. But there are some awareness programs that are created by NIMHANS, and which aims to increase awareness about psychosocial disorders, understanding self, and improving interpersonal relationships and peer support. Ministry of Education has come up with a mental health module. NCRT, CBSE has also have their own mental health guidelines. Manodarpan is an initiative under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. NEP 2020 also has policies for improving the mental health. They all have given specific guidelines, but there are constraints for the schools also. I understand shortage of trained mental health professionals, lack of resources, etc. Before I end, I also want to just add that we at Merago are equally concerned about the mental health concerns of the student population. We are providing online mental health services. We have psychiatrists and a psychologist on board. We have our contact details coming up in the next slide. Now we open the floor for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vasudha, for that excellent exposition. What we will do now is we'll open the program for questions from all the participants. One word of caution, in your enthusiasm to ask a question, do not forget to enable your microphone. If not, we will not be able to hear you. And I would prefer that you mention your name and your institution when you ask the question so that we can reference you and maybe have future correspondence with you. We will try to take all the chat questions. There are not many, but for some reason, for time constraints, etc., if we cannot, we will collate all the questions and email all the participants with the whole text of the question and answer dialogue which takes place. Right, so the floor is open, ladies and gentlemen. We will try our best to answer your questions to the best of our ability. Please go ahead if you have any questions. Okay, to set the ball rolling, Mr. Amit has asked a question. Why are the mental health cases in students rising nowadays? Are there any particular reasons? Vasudha?
Yeah, thanks, Amit, for that question. That's very relevant for today's topic. Mental health cases did exist earlier also. Today, number one, there is a lot of awareness. Number two, people are, it is getting slightly less stigmatized compared to earlier. So maybe we are hearing that the cases are more, but I also see that, situations like globalization, where people are moving out of their homes and staying in different countries, and they are feeling lonely. That could be one of the causes for mental health raises. Also, I strongly believe the impact of social media on children. Uh, they're constantly glued to the social media platforms, and there is a constant comparison among the peers, so they're never happy. That is causing them feel that the fear of missing out. That's another reason. Also, the global environment, the pollution and such things are also aggravating the mental health deterioration of the children, I feel. And earlier, the family structures were different. Even when parents are not around, there would be a grandparent or a granddad or a grandmother or an extended family. So a child was never left alone. That also is causing an increase in the mental health situations raising. And interestingly, it is more prevalent in the urban population than in the rural population, because rural population, there is still um, uh, there is a feeling of connectedness, and they feel belong to, and there is less use of social media. So definitely, these are the factors I think are contributing to the increase of mental health issues. I hope that answers your question, Amit.
Okay, Vasudha, there's another question. The question, Ms. Sapna, she asked a question. What is the most important factor to ensure a student's good mental health?
Yeah. Thank you, Sapna, for that question. Uh, Mental health and physical health are not two separate things. They go hand in hand. So I would always recommend a child to have a good physical health, good eating habits, also uh, having restricted screen usage, put the child in a lot of activities like where they can exert physically, and it could be some sport or it could be going to the gym. These things play a lot of role in improving the students' mental health. Uh, Also teaching them meditation techniques, they don't seem to take it to it very naturally, because it's a boring process for them. They have to sit without doing anything for 10 minutes. It's a huge task, especially without their phones. But it is better we build that also right from the beginning. As they are young, they will take on to it faster. So these are the steps, either for a child or for an adult. These are some of the things we recommend to improve their mental health. Also, to have a good social connect, have face-to-face conversation with people, not through mobiles, not through WhatsApp chats, having a good social network. And instead of just sitting glued to the phone, ask them, encourage them to read books. That will also improve their mental health. This I'm talking about when they are in the you remember the spectrum that I showed. These things will help when they are in the warning zone. If it is beyond that, if they're not improving for any of these things, then of course we have to seek medication and psychologist help.
Basically, what Vasudha is trying to say is that you should build the right ecosystem for the child to prosper. Do not have a unipolar vision, because children adapt very well to a multipolar system. So the school has to build that ecosystem around the student. Okay, we have another question, and I think this question I'll be able to take. Are medications necessary to treat mental health issues, or just counseling is enough? This is from Ashutosh Sharma. Ashutosh, you see, medications are the last step in any illness. Basically, what we are trying to do in this particular webinar is to bring about awareness. Once awareness is inculcated in all of the teaching faculty across the board, then comes sensitivity. Because what the mind does not know, the eye does not see. Once you bring in awareness, sensitivity, people will realize, sensitize to the problem. Next comes identification of a possible mental health issue, right? And then nipping this particular problem in the bud. So by the time you come to the last stage, as you have alluded, there is a mental health, established mental health issue, half or three-fourths of the problems are solved. So ultimately, when all is fail and the patient or the student has become a mental health patient, of course, medication, psychiatric help are all the required. But in my opinion, if in case there are about 25% of students who have a mental health problem, I believe only 1 or 2% land up with medications or treatment, because along the way, a whole lot of ecosystem, like we mentioned, is built up, and half the problems go away because it is more a a social and a group activity than a disease like you would have cough and cold. All right. So as I very commonly tell in my lectures, mental health is not, student mental health is not a destination, it's a journey. You take a whole lot of positive steps along the way. Okay. So it is not a binary thing, mental health or no mental health, right? So I hope that answers your question. Fortunately, not much medications are required, and not many people will require medications. Good counseling, psychological assessment, and psychiatric help would mitigate most of the medication usage. In this connection of dear educators, students, and principals, I would like to uh, draw your attention to a particular health manual brought out by the CBSE board. It's called School Health Manual. This is the comprehensive school teachers health manual in 4 volumes. It's available on the net. You can download the PDF, 4 volumes, each of about 100 or 150 pages. It gives you a whole set of A to Z methodology to handle school health, school students' health. So if you're not aware of it, I want to bring it to your notice. Okay, we have another question coming. Mr. Rudra, he asked this question. What are some of the common mental health issues you have noticed in school children? And
May I take that?
yeah, please. Vasudha, the question is yours.
Yeah. Children will have intellectual disabilities where depending on the IQ of the child, some are functional, very functional. Some will not be able to perform up to the mark, up to their mark of the other student group. So they need some special education. There is also autism, autistic spectrum disorder, where that's also a spectrum. Some kids are functional, but they need some extra support. Their emotional skills are not good. Their social skills are not good. So they also need some kind of extra support. There is also other issues like hyperactive disorder. This is very commonly seen in school children, where they do not have the attention. They cannot sit in one place, and they will be causing a lot of disturbance to the classroom. Such children, depending on the level of attention deficit and also hyperactivity, some are given medication, some are treated with counseling support itself. Children also go through depression, anxiety, OCD, though it is not talked much about. Children cannot express. They don't look depressed, but they can have other symptoms like stomach pain, headache. When there is no medical cause for all this, it boils down to having a mental health issue. Children also have anxiety. The usual onset of anxiety disorders is about 8 to 9 years, and they have obsessive compulsive disorders also. They have very picky eating patterns. They would want things organized in certain way. So these are some of the symptoms of child OCDs. So these are the common mental health disorders that also there is something called selective mutism. This is an anxiety disorder where a child, once he goes to school, he cannot speak because he is not so comfortable in the school ambience. He cannot speak when he goes to the school. When he's back at home, he is fine. There are also separation anxiety disorders where a child is not willing to leave the parents and come back to school and be comfortable. Those are separation anxiety disorders. These are some of the common disorders that we see in the children group.
Okay, I think there is a problem for the delegates to enable the microphone because all the questions are chat questions. We have another question from Ms. Vinita Ahuja. There are many economically weak students and students studying with other students in a classroom in a public school. And these students face a lot of mental health issues because of a drastic change in the scenario. How to handle this classroom scenario? This is a very good question in my opinion, because you have disparity in the economic spectrum of the students in a classroom. So obviously we'll bring out a few problems with coping and adjustments. Vasudha, how do you handle this scenario?
Yeah. Sorry, who asked this question? Vinita. Yeah, thanks a lot, Vinita. That's a very relevant topic. Yes, and I'm glad that you have picked this up and you want to help this child. I'm really happy that your willingness to do something for this child. Firstly, we know the basic principles of Maslow's law, where when the basic needs are met, we move to the next level. So if hunger, food, and basic shelter that's not taken care, a child gets definitely mentally ill. He will not be functioning. So it may be a good idea to understand what is the level of poverty that he is facing. Maybe you can tie up with some NGOs where they can provide some kind of economic support for the child. That's one thing that you can look at. There are a lot of NGOs who are supporting these kind of children. Uh, that's one thing that you can look at doing. Otherwise, if there are any other programs from your school that they want to address this divide, you can go ahead and take the help of that program. If there are none, maybe you can propose one to the school management. Because there is a divide. You say there are students from well-off communities also in your school, whether those parents are kind of willing to um, pitch into this, and whether they can support the children who are their children's peers.
Okay, so this is a very common problem, Vinita, because it all depends on how you handle the situation. You have to empower the economically weaker child, and you have to sensitize the so-called economically strong child so that they understand disparities and they come to understand this particular economics at a very early stage in their career, and it will make so-called economically strong child understand what poverty or uh, not having enough money means, and it will make the poor child understand how they can empower themselves in spite of being economically not so very strong. So it requires very deft handling. I know it's easy for me to say it, but that is what a good teacher is made of. Okay, we have another question coming, Vasudha. This is from National Korean. This question, I can hear you. Okay, I'll pass Shaisha's question. Okay, what is your question, please? Audio issues. I can't hear you. So let's take this question. Ms. Goel. This is from Neha Gupta. Sometimes it's very difficult to make parents understand about common disorders in their child. As parents, their child is doing good. But this is a common question. You see, you notice something wrong with the child, but the parents refuse to understand that there's something wrong with the child. So Neha is asking you, Vasudha, how can you convince the parents and how to handle the situation?
Yeah, Neha, I do have this problem, and many times I tell it is the parents who need counseling and not so much the children. It is difficult for a parent to accept that the child may have some issues. Can the participants mute their mic, please? There is some disturbance. So yeah, you start working on the child, and of course, if the child is not getting better, you will have to you could run some assessments to the child, basic assessments. You can, then you have something to show to the parents that there is a behavioral problem, there is a conduct problem, or there is an anxiety issue, or there is some depression issue. So see, these things come up when we have the mental health literacy. So you can have a self-report questionnaire given to the child, and when he answers that, you could just document it and then say, see, this is another document that is supporting that your child has some problem. Apart from that, a lot of us are noticing that there is some behavioral issue. Maybe it's a good idea to jot down the behavioral issue that you're facing with the child and discuss this with the parents. And yes, sometimes parents do not agree at all, but I think if you continue to do work with the child, be that empathetic listener, and try to understand why he is behaving that way. If it is a behavioral difficulty, or if it is any other mental health conditions like anxiety, depression, when you have a professional come and run a screening, they cannot deny a professional opinion. So you can tell them that a psychiatrist had come to our school and they have said that this student has a concern. That's number one. Otherwise, you could run some questionnaire by yourself, and you could have a document for the parents to say that this child has some issues. But as a counselor, I don't know whether you're a counselor or a teacher, be there, don't judge the person by the behavior. Try to understand what is making him behave that way. It may not happen in 1 or 2 sessions. Talk to him, make sure that, he can trust you, you are available to him. Eventually, he or she will open up to you, and then you can work on the child.
Okay, we're drawing to the end of the webinar. I would like to say a few things. One of the most obvious questions any school teacher would ask, if you do not have the system in your school, what are the next steps? What do I do? I'm aware, I'm sensitized, what do I do? Now, even though you were not asked this question, I would like to enlighten you by saying that you need, number one, to have a nominate one of your teachers to undergo some kind of a course. There are a lot of people offering these courses. If you're not very sure, please contact us. We will help you. Merago is empowered to do these kind of programs. We will help you. So once a teacher has some amount of knowledge, because these mental health issues have to be handled very carefully. Being strict with a mentally challenged child can make the matters worse. At the same time, allowing the child to do whatever he wants also will contribute to the problem. Therefore, somebody who's adequately trained to understand and how to handle it, and best is one of your teachers get themselves empowered. So what happens then is they can handle it a little more professionally. Then they can fall back on organizations like NIMHANS or even Merago or anybody else to help out. So the first step is to get yourself being aware and get yourself being trained to a certain extent. I think that will go a long, long way. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your questions. I don't know, for some reason we could not have oral questions, but it is very nice. What we will do next is we will communicate to all of you by email and let you know how we go ahead with getting back and respond to all your queries, collate all your details, and maybe issue some kind of a participation certificate to all of you so that you also have a documentation of having participated in our program. Merago Healthcare will also very soon present more webinars on all health-related topics of current interest to bring about more awareness and promoting good health. Because we believe good health builds the community, builds the school, and in the larger interest, builds a good country. We sincerely hope that you found this program very useful, and we have found it extremely stimulating. Vasudha joins me in wishing you all and your students all the very best. You have a very, very good, healthy life ahead. Thank you very much for a wonderful interaction. We look forward to seeing you in this space very soon.
Thank you all. Thank you for participating in our first webinar. Thank you so much.